Now, it is amazing to me, and this is what I mean by my opening statement in this video, that we have become a culture that accepts lies as the norm instead of rebuking lies as a miscreant behavior. It's the fact that our standards have fallen so low that we now accept lies as the norm. And I would argue amongst our world leaders that it is not the ones that state their positions that are diametrically opposed to the welfare of humanity that are the most dangerous. So it's not the Rockefellers that come out and write biographies like John D. Rockefeller and state that he's proud to be working against the best interests of Americans, as he did in his autobiography, that are the most dangerous. Because everyone knows the Rockefellers' agenda, and the fact that the Rockefellers have no agenda that will benefit American citizens and that will benefit humanity. It's not the presidents like Bush that are the most dangerous, where he will come out and arrogantly state his position that he's a war president, and that he favors policies that again inflict great harm upon humanity. So, for example, I'll just give you one example in the banking industry. Lloyd Blankfein, CEO of Goldman Sachs, who came out and said that his firm was doing God's work, which is almost a laughable notion, were it not for the fact that I'm sure that many of the brainwashed masses actually believed him when he said his firm was doing God's work, when to me it's doing more of the devil's work. So, when you look at these statements of people that try to profess to be good people and to be working on your side, when clearly they're working against humanity, and they're frauds and they're demagogues. These are the people you must guard against. So again, that's why I say never judge anyone by their words, because you can say you're doing God's work all you want. But if the reality is you're doing the devil's work, you're doing the devil's work. You must judge people by their actions and not their words. And also look to, you have to be a forensic, almost like a forensic detective, to understand where people are coming from. And you have to understand that you must look at, A, what is the motive, for this person's action, and who benefits from this action. Those are the two things that you must look at. And then if you do, often the truth will be revealed, will precipitate out of the lies, and you'll be able to connect the dots very easily and understand exactly whose side this person is on. If only you look for what is the motive and who does this action benefit. So I'll always remember to turn to that as well. So as an example of this, you can look at, say, the United Nations, who a lot of people, I shouldn't say everyone, because a lot of people understand that the United Nations is really no different than the World Bank and IMF, and is a nation that fights for the elite, even though they say they fight for the poor. And they certainly do have some programs that do fight for the poor, but that's just a front for the overall overarching mission of that institution, which I believe is to fight for the elite and to oppress the poor. So when you look at instances of basically institutionalized laws like diplomatic immunity for UN employees, why should we hold an organization that's supposedly working for humanity to a much lower standard than the average citizen? Because if you think about it, all diplomatic immunity does is to encourage criminal behavior. If you're a good person and you're confronted with a situation where someone comes to you and say, hey, you can engage in criminal behavior, never be prosecuted, and you can make all this money from doing it, would you not be more encouraged to partake in that illicit criminal behavior than if you were granted no diplomatic immunity? So that's an instance where I could say, from a logical standpoint, just think about, what is the motivation for the United Nations giving their employees diplomatic immunity? Why should if their high-level officials are going to engage in upstanding, honest, courageous, admirable behavior, why do they need to be granted diplomatic immunity? They only need to be granted diplomatic immunity if they're going to be engaging in illicit criminal activity and need to be saved from being prosecuted in that country from this activity. And then who benefits from it? Who benefits from it? high-level officials in the UN. So what does that say about the United Nations as a whole? So again, this is just one way you can like cut through all the fat of all the lies and get to the visceral muscle of the truth, is to understand. Ask yourself two questions whenever something seems to be a very questionable policy among institutions or governments. And I would also say that, and this is one thing that sparked some hope within me from the Occupy Wall Street movement, is that people are realizing that good change will only come from themselves. They cannot rely on the government to make change. You look throughout history, right? When has there been a historical precedent where a government basically uplifted its own people? You look at how did India free itself from British colonial imperialistic rule. It was Gandhi that affected that. It wasn't the Indian government. How did South Africa free itself from apartheid? It was Nelson Mandela that did that. How will Burma eventually reach a peaceful, hopefully republic? Because again, I'm against democracies. How will Burma eventually reach that? It will be through Aung San Suu Kyi if it happens in the future. So know that self-reliance is also key to restoring our freedoms in the future as well. So again, if you look at the world leaders today, they have evolved from, say, the Pol Pots and the Idi Amins of the past to become suave, sophisticated, charming leaders. So the Tony Montanas of the past have now become the Tony Sopranos. So you must be wary, and you must realize that all positive change will come from you and me. It will not come from our governments. It will not come from our world leaders. So again, I take great heart and great optimism in seeing the fact that people are starting to rise up. But the troubling aspect of a lot of this movement, like I said, with the Occupy Wall Street protesters chanting, "Show me what democracy looks like," is that we still need to spread the truth as much as we can so that people understand what they're fighting for. Because they can't be attacking the symptoms, right? Like, they can't be saying all rich people are bad or evil. That's just like ludicrous to say that, because there are millionaires out there, there are multimillionaires that have made their money honestly and ethically. It's not that all rich people are bad. So you can't be lumping the ill-gotten gains of Wall Street onto like all rich people. And it's also equally ludicrous, that I've been hearing a lot of people blaming, say, the Jewish community just because there are some very, very bad Jewish bankers out there, like the Rothschilds and other very, very powerful banking families that are Jewish, that are doing very, very bad things for humanity. It's ludicrous to say the whole Jewish community is bad. Not all Jewish people are bad bankers. So one has to separate, again, the symptoms from the root cause and make sure you attack the root cause, which is the very immoral, corrupt monetary system. So those that also serve as the cog in the machine, those that serve to perpetuate the system, must be educated, because without the worker bees, the queen bees, the Rockefellers, the Rothschilds, cannot survive. They cannot survive without the worker bees working at Citigroup, without working at Bank of America, without working at HSBC. So if you want to attack the root and destroy the root of the problem, which I believe is the only viable solution, is to destroy this immoral, illegal monetary system as is and implement sound money. That the worker bees must be educated so the worker bees do not work for the queen bees and support the queen bees. And this brings me to my last point, which is that of education, because I think the current situation with business education around the world is horrible today, because I think basically people are paying good money, going into debt, basically to learn a bunch of government banking sponsored lies about economics. Supply and demand, the basic principle of economics 101, as we are taught in business school, does not even apply in the world today. You look at gold and silver, right? We don't even know what the free market price of gold is, because the price of gold and silver is set by a bogus paper market that bankers created just to be able to suppress the price of gold and silver. So where physical supply and physical demand of gold and silver to set the price, it would currently be multiples of the current price right now that it is in October 2011. So we have no idea what the free price market price is. And again, we are taught that free markets exist. There are millions and millions of business students today that erroneously believe and very naively believe that free markets exist in the world. And I would say not one country operates on a free market principle, that all markets are rigged by central banks. The central banks are responsible for every single bubble and every single economic collapse in the past century because they basically manipulate everything through setting interest rates. And you think about it, in a free market, the free market sets the interest rates. So why every day do you hear the Bank of Japan decided to raise interest rates, or the Bank of England decided to cut interest rates, or the Federal Reserve decided to raise interest rates, lower interest rates? If we had a free market, the free market would be setting interest rates. We don't need central bankers setting interest rates and causing distortions in free market prices and causing bubbles in real estate, causing bubbles in stock markets, suppressing commodity prices in gold and silver, causing distortions in the oil price. So oil runs from $50 to $150 a barrel, back down to 50, up to 100, back down to 80, back to 100. This is like ridiculous. So everything that we learn in business school about how capital markets work is a lie. So why go and spend all this money? I say business education is a total waste of time. It's an absolute waste of time, because what you're going to have to do if you really want to understand the truth is if you go to 4 years of undergrad school learning about business, and if you go to further your education in the institutional re-education process in business for through 2 more years, is you're just going to have to spend the next 4 to 5 years of your life unlearning everything you learn, because everything you learn in business school is a false principle. And even what you learn about government statistics, who really believes that inflation statistics like the US and the UK are putting out right now, when they're so easily disproved by basically just knowing and looking at how much money you spend through inflation of energy prices, through inflation of commodity prices like like water and food that are going through the roof. And meanwhile, the government's telling you inflation is 2 or 3%. So all these falsehoods that you learn in school is a great detriment to understanding what to do today to combat the banksters and what they're trying to do in bankrupting the middle class. So in conclusion, I would just encourage everyone to take the initiative to learn more about the truth. If there are principles and concepts I spoke about in this video that you don't understand, I'll put more links on the bottom. I highly recommend that everyone read John Gatto, who talked about the founders of the global educational system and the American education system and what they desired, and the fact that they desired a dumbed down populace to basically serve, like I said, as worker bees, to basically go into the factory system and serve the elite. That was the Hall principle, and we see that the education system is winning today, and the fact that it is dumbing down our youth instead of making them more intelligent. So in order to grasp the truth and become more intelligent, I believe that you have to take the initiative to educate yourself. Understand what the income tax is about. Ronald Reagan commissioned a study whereby I think the findings of that study, and I'll post the link to that study below again, would shock people as far as like what the purpose of the income tax in the United States is. Learn that money is printed as debt. I know that in Accounting 101 you're taught that money goes on the asset side, but all money is created as debt today, and that is giving rise to the huge problems we have today. So I would say educate. Self-education is the only way you'll be educated. I'll leave you with one word from a journalism professor of mine at the University of Texas at Austin, Mercedes Linde Uriarte, who told me that if you only source your information from the mainstream media, you cannot consider yourself educated about anything that's going on in the news today. Not because the media will deliberately tell you lies, but because they only they frame stories, and they all have their biases because, as you know, there's only a few corporations in the world that own like 97% of the media in your country. So there is a definite bias to what they want to say. So you receive only one side of the story. So it's like being friends with a couple in a relationship, and you hear the story about an argument they had from the man, you hear the story from the female, and they're going to be completely opposite. That's how the media is. You always have to seek out independent media to get the other side of the story. Otherwise, you can never consider yourself educated on any topic, on any issue that's happening in the world today. And I still feel that that was the best piece of advice I ever received in my educational career. And also seek out other alternative views on YouTube as well. I've seen other people that, they might not be considered educated as far as going to Harvard or Princeton, but that's actually better because they're less brainwashed. So, one person I've seen out there that I think has a lot of wise things to say is this guy named Demcat. So check him out. I'm sure there's like other people. I'm just thinking off the top of my head. There's many other dozens. So I'll also put that in the links below. Other people that you can check out as well that have a lot of knowledge to impart. So that's it for now. I'll make more videos and continue the Truth Chronicles dialogue here. Please also comment below. Write about what other topics you want to hear me speak about. And that's it for now. So let's keep the fight going. And while the criminal banksters may win the battle, if we succeed in spreading the truth and we keep fighting for the truth, we will win the long-term war.